2 Samuel chapter 20. And as I mentioned last week, as we go through the 2 Samuel, I ask everyone to just kind of pull back and try to look at things from the big picture point of view rather than looking at it from microscopic view. You know, I want you to have a macro view rather than a microscopic view. So, you know, as we go through this, and I want you to just kind of like look at the big pictures and what the Bible is really teaching us. So let's just read through it, and then we'll discuss more. Then David fled from Naioth and Ramah. Oh, wait a second. Sorry. Now there happened to be there a worthless man whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. And he blew the trumpet and said, "We have no portion in David, and we have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tent, O Israel." So all the men of Israel withdrew from David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah followed their kings steadfastly from the Jordan to Jerusalem. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 concubines whom he had left to care for the house, and put them in the house under guard and provide for them, but did not go into them. So they were shut up until the day of their death, living as if in widowhood. Then the king said to Amasa, "Call the men of Judah together to me within 3 days, and be there yourself." So Amasa went to summon Judah, but he delayed beyond the set time that had been appointed him. And David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba the son of Bichri will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your lord's servants and pursue them, lest he gets himself to fortified cities and escape from us." And there went out after him Joab's men and Cherethites and Pelethites and all the mighty men. They went out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba the son of Bichri. When they were at the great stone that is in Gibeon, Amasa came to meet him. Now Joab was wearing a soldier's garment, and over it was a belt with the sword and a sheath fastened on his thigh. And as he went forward, it fell out. And Joab said to Amasa, "Is it well with you, my brother?" And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. But Amasa did not observe the sword that was in Joab's hand. So Joab struck him with it in the stomach, and spilled his entrails to the ground without striking a second blow. And he died. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba the son of Bichri. And the son of Joab's young man took his stand by Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab, and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." And Amasa laid, wallowing his blood in the highway, and anyone who came by seeing him stopped. And when the man saw that all the people stopped, he carried Amasa out of the highway into the field and threw a garment over him. When he was taken out of the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba the son of Bichri. The Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beth Makkah, and all the Bichrites assembled and followed him in. And all the men who were with Joab came and besieged him in Abel the Beth Makkah. They cast up a mount against the city, and it stood against the rampart, and they were battling the wall to throw it down. Then a wise woman called from the city, "Listen, tell Joab, come here, that I may speak to you." And he came near her, and the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." Then she said to him, "Listen to the word of your servant." And he answered, "I am listening." Then she said, They used to say in formal times, "Let them but ask the council at Abel." And so they settled the matter. "I am one of those who are peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the heritage of the Lord? Joab answered, far be it from me, far be it that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not true. But a man of the hill country of Ephraim called Sheba, the son of Bichri, he lifted up his hand against the king David. Give up him alone, and I will withdraw from the city. And the woman said to Joab, behold, his head shall be thrown to you over the wall. The woman went to all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. So he blew the trumpet, and they dispersed from the city, every man to his home, and Joab returned to Jerusalem to the king. Now Joab was in the command of all the army of Israel, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was in the command of the Cheresite and Pelathite. And Adoram was in charge of the forced labor, and Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was the recorder, and Sheba was a secretary, and Zadok and Abiathar was a priest, and Ira, the Jairite, was also David's priest. Okay, so there's the guy named Sheba. He rebelled against the King David, and he actually gathered the most of people in Israel, not in Judah, because Judean really followed David, but Sheba and the other Israelite people did not. So when he started to rebel, David gave orders to Amasa. You remember who Amasa is, right? Who's Amasa, by the way? Does anyone remember who Amasa is? Amasa was commander of Absalom, and he was with Absalom when Absalom rebelled against David, right? But David actually gave him a chance to be with David instead of actually, since Absalom was defeated by David's the commander, he could have actually killed Amasa as well, but he didn't. He kept them on his side, and even gave him the opportunity to go after the worthless guy Sheba, and so David gave him orders to gather a people, summon the people, and gather the people and go against the Sheba, but he actually did not do it on time. So David could not wait any longer, so he asked Abishai, I want you to go and go after this guy Sheba. So when he and his brother Joab went to the town, Joab really killed Amasa. I told you that the relationship between Joab and Amasa was like their cousin's husband, right? Their cousin's husband. So from Joab's perspective, Joab is a kind of man who really do anything for David. Anything that it's beneficial for David, he will do anything. Whether David orders him to do it or not, he just does it anyway. He's the kind of guy who sets his mind and then just do it. But at the same time, he's the kind of guy, he's actually do it for his own good. Remember when he actually killed the other, commander as well? So David always wanted to have other commanders besides his nephews, but always Joab is the one who go after and kill this commander who wants to keep him. So he did this exactly same thing, and this is the second time he's actually killed the other commander, right? David wanted to keep other guy, the Saul's commander, he killed him, right? And this time, as he was greeting, he actually literally just to kill him through the sword. So after he killed Amasa, he went after the town where they're hiding with Sheba and the followers of the Sheba. And there's a wise woman came out and said, why are you trying to destroy the whole town? So Joab said, we're not trying to destroy the town. If you give him alone, we'll just withdraw from this town. We're not going to harm anyone just to give us that man. And that wise woman, went back with the other wise men in the town. He literally, killed Sheba and threw him out. His head was thrown out to the town. So they were just withdrew from their place. So I want you to know this. Who is Sheba? This guy named Sheba. So you will see some story here continue as we read this 2 Samuel. Do you see there's a certain story is repeating here? What story do you see it as repeating? Yeah, that's very true. Very true. But there's some common things here. So one common thing is, first of all, David's son was a rebel against David. Right? And then when he was fleeing from his son Absalom, there's a man who was actually, cursing at him while he was fleeing. Who was that guy? Do you remember? When you go back to chapter 16. Right, Shimei. Shimei was cursing at David as he was actually running away from his son Absalom. But pay attention. Who is he? Where is he from? Right? So he's from a family of the Saul, the house of Saul. Okay? So which tribe is Saul's from? He's a Benjamite. Who is this Sheba? He's also from the tribe of Benjamin. So you see it's repetition here. Someone from house of Saul's or someone from the Benjamin is the one who's to keep rebel against David. Right? But let's take a look at this. So go back to chapter 20, verse 1 again. So now there happened to be there a worthless man whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. Right? So let's take a look at his the few things here. So his name Sheba. What does a Sheba sounds like? Sheba. This Sheba is very familiar to you guys. Maybe it's a little bit hard for you just to relate this, but you know this very well. Sheba. Sheba means 7. Sabbath, right? Sabbath is coming from that. Sheba is a 7. Okay, so his name is a 7, Sheba, but he's a son of what? He's son of a Bichri. So Bichri, what does Bichri means? Well, obviously we don't know. Bichri means is first son, first fruit. First sons or first child or firstborn. 7 of the firstborn, you can think of it as first son, which is Adam. Okay? And then fall of a man. I showed you I kind of like mapped this story, before, right? When Amnon and Absalom was fighting over each other and they're killing each other. I just linked that story between the, Cain and Abel, right? It's a very similar story. It's a fall of man going against the king, David. Okay? And they keep rebel against the king David. But at the end, they don't prevail. Their plan does not go well. At the end, they are destroyed. The people who go against David, they're destroyed at the end. That's the end of the story. So we're going to continue to just keep that in mind in your head, okay? We're going to come back to this. All right, let's go back. Now we're going to go to chapter 21. Now, there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year, and David sought the face of the Lord, and the Lord said, there is a blood guilt on Saul and on his house, because he put the Gibeonites to death. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to him. Now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. Although the people of Israel had sworn to spare them, Saul had sought to strike them down in his zeal for the people of Israel and Judah. And David said to the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you, and how shall I make atonement, that you may bless the heritage of the Lord? The Gibeonites said to him, it is not a matter of a silver or gold between us and Saul's or his house, neither is it for us to put any man to death in Israel. And he said, what do you say that I shall do for you? They said to the king, the man who consumed us and planned to destroy us, so that we should have no place in all the territory of Israel, let 7 of his sons be given to us, so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord. And the king said, I will give them. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of the Saul's son Jonathan, because of the oath of the Lord that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. The king took the 2 sons, Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, Armoni, and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Merab, and the daughter of Saul's, whom she bore Ariel, the son of Barzillai, and Meholathite. And he gave them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the mountain before the Lord. And 7 of them perished together. They were put to death in the first day of the harvest, at the beginning of barley harvest. Then Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock from the beginning of a harvest until the rain fell upon them from the heavens. And she did not allow the birds of the air to come upon them by day, or the beasts of the field by night. When David was told that the Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, David went and took the bones of Saul's and bones of his son Jonathan from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen from the public square of Beth-shan, where the Philistine had hanged them, on the day of the Philistine killed Saul on Gilboa. And he brought up from there and bones of Saul's and the bones of his son Jonathan, and they gathered the bones of those who were hanged. And they buried the bones of Saul's and his son Jonathan in the land of Benjamin in Zelah, in the tomb of Kish his father. And they did all the kings commanded, and after the gods responded to the plea for the land. Let's take a look at this story. So, when you look at this story, there was 3 years of famine, and David was sought to help and try to figure it out what is actually happening to their land. And he just trying to figure it out what Israel had done wrong, and they couldn't figure it out. And then one day, and then he found out that there's something to do with what Saul had done to this Gibeonites. The Lord said there is a blood guilt on Saul's and on his house because he put the Gibeonites to death. Unfortunately, there's no record of what Saul did to Gibeonites in the Bible. So we cannot just trace exactly that incident, exactly what Saul had done to Gibeonites. But based on the story that we read from this particular chapter is that he had done, it's almost, he was trying to wipe out the Gibeonites. So when you look at the story, when you look at the verse 5, they said to the king, the man who consumed us and planned to destroy us, so that we should have no place in all the territory of Israel. So literally, Saul was trying to wipe out the Gibeonites from the land of Israel. So let's just pause it for a moment and let's figure this out. Who's a Gibeonite? Who are they? Exactly. So we have to go back to the original story of the Gibeonites, which is the story which Tony just mentioned. When Joshua entered into the promised land, and God said to kill everyone in the land, right? All the Canaanites should be completely wiped out, right? So Joshua was in the process of fighting against all the tribes in the land, but Gibeonites heard the news that Israelites enter into their land, and they were very strong men, they're warrior, but they realized that it does not matter how strong they are, they will not be able to actually win this battle. So they actually, had some of the people as if they came from the long or the far land. He just came to Joshua and said, we're from the far land and we want to actually make a treaty with you. And then because they kind of show their sackcloth and they show their sandals, they show their clothes, and they show the bread that they brought. They said, when we left our town, everything was anew, but now look at us. How far we had to travel to come here. That everything it is like now old now. And then Joshua literally took that word and he made a treaty with the Gibeonites. And then later on, they found out that they were living right next town, which they supposed to destroy them. So, for those of you who have not actually gone through the Exodus with me, Joshua with me, and obviously you don't hear the whole story about what I explained before, but let me just summarize it. So most of the tribes in Canaan, the land of Canaan, they're pretty much wiped out. Of course, they could not wipe out everyone, but most of them been wiped out, except this one tribe, which is Gibeonites. And I explained to you that this is the story about whoever wants to live will spare their life. So who came, the Gibeonite came to who? Joshua. So what is Joshua referencing? Jesus. Whoever comes to Jesus will spare their life. So I actually relate the same story with the story of those, the woman in the New Testament, who actually committed adultery and was brought out to Jesus. And then the Jewish people was about to stone her and asked, Jesus, should we actually stone her? And Jesus said, who whoever does not have a sin, you throw the stones at her, right? And then everyone left their, stones and left, right? So they were brought out to Jesus because of the law, but because she came to Jesus, she was able to spare her life. She's supposed to die by the law, but she was able to spare her life because Jesus was there. Same story. Gibeonites, they came to Jesus because they want to live. Whoever wants to live and come to Jesus is the one who will spare their life. But whoever does not will be completely wiped out. So when Joshua made a treaty with those Gibeonites, and it said, "Why did you lie to us?" Right? It's very simple, because we want to live. And then after that incident, 5 other tribes in the land of Canaan, they made allied to kill or wipe out the Gibeonites. Right? So Gibeonites actually came to Joshua. I want you to put yourself in Joshua's shoes. Okay? Not think about it from someone else's perspective, but I want you to just think about it from Joshua's perspective. Let's assume Joshua made a treaty with the Gibeonites. So because Joshua made a commitment and a covenant with them, he could not wipe out Gibeonites. But if there's other 5 tribes that are made allied and they want to, wipe out the Gibeonites, from Joshua's perspective, he doesn't have to do anything to wipe out the Gibeonites. Let them wipe out the Gibeonites. He doesn't have to put his hands on dirty to kill Gibeonites. So he could have just kept quiet and let them destroy the Gibeonites. And then after they destroy the Gibeonites, and then Joshua could destroy those 5 tribes, right? But instead, because Joshua made a treaty with Gibeonites, what did he do? Let's go back to that story. Let's go back to Joshua. It's chapter 9, right? Joshua chapter 9. And then that's the story that I just explained to you is in chapter 9. So this time we're going to take a look at chapter 10. As soon as Adoni-Zedek, the king of Jerusalem, heard that now Joshua had captured Ai and had it devoted to the destructions, doing to Ai and its king as he had done to Jericho and its kings, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made a peace with Israel and were among them. He feared greatly because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were warriors. So as I mentioned, they did not give up themselves because they're weak. They were very strong man. They're bigger cities. The men are a warrior, but they realize it does not matter how strong they are, how big they are. They realize that they could not win this battle, so they actually came to Joshua and made a treaty with them. So Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hohan, king of Hebron, and Piram, king of Jarmuth, to Japhia, king of Lachish, and Debir, king of Eglon, saying, "Come up to me and help me, and let us strike Gibeons, for it has made a peace with Joshua and with the people of Israel." Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered their forces and went up with all their armies and encamped against the Gibeons and made a war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp of Gilgal said, "Do not relax your land hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us. So what did the Gibeonites do? He went to Joshua, asked for help. They did not try to fight against them by themselves. They came to Joshua. I want you to put Joshua as Jesus, right? And the Gibeonites came and asked for their help. Save us. Deliver us from this situation, right? Now continue on. So Joshua went up from Gilgal, and he had all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have given them into your hands. Not a man of them shall stand before you. What is he saying? Do not fear. None of you will be harmed. I will protect you. I will deliver you from the hands of these 5 tribes. Right? So you can see Jesus is in this picture. Whoever wants to come and ask for help, then Jesus is there to protect them. Joshua did not have to do this. Like I mentioned, he could have actually let those 5 tribes to destroy Gibeonites, right? Then he didn't have to do anything. But that's not what he did, because he made a covenant with them. The one who should be destroyed is not destroyed because of Joshua. Continue on. So Joshua came upon them suddenly, having marched up all night from Gilgal, and the Lord threw them into a panic before Israel, who struck them into a panic before Israel, who struck with a great blow at Gibeons, and chased them by the way of the ascent of Beth Horon, and struck them as far as Escah and Makkedah. And as they fled before Israel, while they were going down the ascent of Beth Horon, the Lord threw down a large stone from heaven on them, as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died because of the hailstones than the sons of Israel killed with the sword. At that time, Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stopped until the nation looked vengeance on their enemies. So look at this. God literally stopped sun and the moon, which is impossible. Scientifically, it's impossible, right? You stop, moons and sun and the earth turning, literally, right? This is the story that you will never hear, all right? This is the, splitting the Red Sea is nothing compared to what he did, all right? Splitting the Red Sea is the joke compared to stopping sun and moon turning, right? There's no story besides this. It's so great. So God literally doing this to deliver Gibeonites out of this hands of this 5 tribes. That's amazing stories. Okay, we know this story, but most people don't realize. They know the story that Joshua stopped the moon and sun, but most of the people don't even know what war. What did God do to save? Who they were trying to save? Most of the people don't even know. It's the Gibeonites. It's not even easy. So, to deliver the Gibeonites from the hands of this 5 tribes, the kings of this 5 tribes, God literally did this. God kept the promise. Joshua also kept the promise with the Gibeonites to spare them because they want to live. Now, with this Gibeonites. Now what Saul did was try to wipe them out of the land of Israel. Imagine. Someone who actually came to Jesus, because this person who came to Jesus was a sinner, supposed to be killed, supposed to be destroyed. I want you to think about the man who was crucified next to Jesus. Two criminals on the left and right. One of them, we don't know which side, one of them said to Jesus, "Please remember me." That's all he said. That's all he said. "Lord, please remember me." And what's the word of Jesus? Tonight, you will be with me. You will be with me. Didn't matter. Or Jesus didn't really care what he did. He was one of the criminals supposed to be crucified for his own sin, of whatever he did. He deserved to be crucified on the cross, not like Jesus. But all he did was just, "Lord, please remember me." One word, one ask, literally saved him. There was another criminal on the other side, did not ask for that. He was actually just cursing at Jesus, right? So, when you look at this, whoever comes to Jesus will find their life. But now, someone else is trying to destroy that person. God won't let it happen. But Saul was trying to destroy and wipe the Gibeonites out of the land of Israel. Now the famine came on. Now, let's come back to 2 Samuel chapter 21 again. I want you to pay attention. Let's go back to chapter 21, verse 2. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but the remnant of Amorites. Okay, let's take a look at what this means. Now, this will go further. Well, let's go to Genesis this time. Let's go to Genesis chapter 15. Genesis chapter 15. We're going to read from verse 16. This chapter 15 is the story that God is making covenant with Abraham. What will happen? Okay? And while he was talking to Abraham, and he's saying this in verse 16, "And they shall come back here in the 4th generation," which means they're gonna actually go to Egypt, and then they're going to pass the 4th generation and will be delivered, right? "For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete." Let's pay attention to what he's saying. What he's saying is, I'm going to put you and your descendants into Egypt until the 4th generation is passed. And I'm going to bring you back to your descendants, back to this land where you are, which is Abraham at that time. He was in the land of Canaan. So I'm going to bring your descendants back here. But the reason that I'm keeping your descendants in Egypt is because I'm waiting and being patient with these people until their sins are up to the nose. When their sins are, filled, I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to completely wipe them out, and I'm going to bring your descendants back to the land where you are in today. So what God is saying is, I am going to wipe out the Amorites. Right? Wipe out the Amorites. And once again, when we come back to 2 Samuel, what did we just read? Verse 2, let's read it again. "So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites." Which means Their remnant of Amorites, which should have been completely wiped out, according to God's promise and covenant. They should have been completely wiped out, but they're spared. But those spared people, Saul was trying to destroy. So, David asked, "What shall I do for you?" And they said, verse 6, "Let 7 of his sons be given to us, so we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul. Then chosen of the Lord." And the king said, "I will give them." So listen, what did Gibeonite ask for? 7 sons of Saul. Well, where is Saul from? Which tribe? He's a Benjamite, right? He's a Benjamite. Now he is asking for 7 sons. Well, let's go back to the previous chapter. Sheba, a Bichri, who go against King David, right? His name was a 7, and he's also from Benjamin. Now, they asked the 7 sons. So, David gave the 7 sons of Saul, but he spared Mephibosheth, which is the sons of Jonathan, because David made a promise with Jonathan, "I will take care of your sons." Right? So he did not want to deliver Mephibosheth, but he actually delivered other sons of Saul's, and daughters of sons, and concubines of sons. So deliver 7 sons to them, and they hanged them. So after those 7 sons killed, now they were now spared. So all the 7 means is resting number, as well as the number of a church as well. Right? It is the Spirit who was sent for a church is the number 7 means that I explained. So these similar stories are repeating. At the end, after those 7 sons who are trying to destroy the one who are saved, now their famine was gone. And then when Rizpah, which was Saul's concubine, she actually stayed there day and night to drive out those animals or the birds of their corpse. And David heard what Rizpah did. So David ordered, "Bring the bones of Saul's and Jonathan's bones." So they brought those Saul's and Jonathan's bones and buried those 7 sons' bones together to restore their name. They restored their name, putting them together. So let's take a look at here. Verse 11 and on again. When David was told what Rizpah, the daughters of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, David went and took the bones of Saul's and the bones of his son Jonathan from the man of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Beth-shan, where the Philistine killed Saul on Gilboa, and brought up from there the bones of Saul's and the bones of son Jonathan, and they gathered the bones of those who were hanged, and they buried the bones of Saul's and his sons Jonathan in the land of Benjamin in Jelah, in the tombs of Kish his father, and they did all that the king commanded. And after that, God responded to the plea of the land. So now they put all the bones together and buried them together. And then the plea of the land was there. So, but whoever wants to try to destroy the one that God actually saved will not be spared. They will be destroyed, just like what we just saw here. Let's continue on. Verse 15. There was war again between the Philistine and Israel, and David went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistine, and David grew weary. Ishbi-benob, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with new sword, thought to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. And David's men swore to him, "You shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel." After this there was again war with the Philistine at Gob. Then Shibbekai the Hushathite struck down Sapt, who was one of the descendants of the giants. And there was again war with the Philistine at Gob, and Elhanan, the son of Ajariah Oregim, and Bethlehemite struck down Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was again war at Gath. Where there was a man of a great stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand, and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in numbers, and he also were descendants from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. These 4 were descendants from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hands of his servants. It's kind of interesting. As I mentioned, remember when David was fleeing from Absalom? And there is the guy name. Do you remember the guy name? No. There's a guy named that I mentioned that most people don't even know. All right, you remember that Ittai? And he was from where? Gath, which is the town where the Goliaths came from. There's 600 people who followed David, whereas there's a giant, right, strong warrior, where Goliaths came from. They were all destroyed. Some were following David, some were completely destroyed. Right? Once again, Amorites supposed to be destroyed, but the people who came to Joshua spared their life. Gath, the town where Goliath came from, the enemies of David should have been destroyed, but some spared and followed David, while others are destroyed. Very similar story. And now, chapter 22. Let's move on. And David spoke to the Lord the word of this song on the day, and the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies, from the hands of all Saul. So at this point, you'll see one thing. 1, the people who are supposed to be destroyed, all destroyed. Philistines, rebellious people, all destroyed before King David. Now at the end of all this, the people who's supposed to be spared is spared, and who's supposed to be destroyed is all destroyed. Whoever came to David and whipped David, they were singing the song of the victories, while the others are completely destroyed. Now, think of it as this is a song at the end of everything. I want you to think of it as story of the Revelations. So let's take a look at the Revelations, since we haven't been there for a long time. Let's go to Revelation. Let's take a look at chapter 5. Revelation chapter 5. Revelations chapter 5. We're going to read from verse verse 1. Then I saw in the right hand of him who was seated on the throne a scroll written within on and on the back, sealed with the 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look into it. And I began to weep aloud, because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look into it. And one of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, he conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." And between the throne and the 4 living creatures among the elder I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes, which are the 7 Spirit of God sent out into all the earth. And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, and holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nations. And you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." Then I looked, and I heard around the throne and living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of thousands, saying with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive a power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing." And I heard every creature in heaven and on earth, under the earth and in the sea, and all that is in them, saying, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing, the honor and glory and might forever and ever." And the 4 living creatures said, "Amen." And the elder fell down and worshipped. So what you see here is the Lamb who was slain before, obviously, was Jesus, right? He was the king of Judah, which is Jesus, right? Now, at the end, what are they doing? They're praising of the victory at the end, right? Now, this chapter 22 is like that. Now, at the end, they're praising about all that happened. The victory of David. So let's come back to 2 Samuel again. And David spoke to the Lord the word of his song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer." Whose rock? Obviously Jesus. "My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge, my Savior who saved me from the violence." Well, obviously, this is about Jesus. "I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. For the wave of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction assailed me. The cord of Sheol untangled me. Snares of death confronted me. In my distress I call upon the Lord. To my God I called. From his temples he heard my voice, and my cry came to his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations of the heavens and trembled and quaked. Because he was angry, Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals of flame forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rose on the cherub and flew. He was seen on the wings of the wind. He made a darkness around him. He is a canopy. Thick clouds, a gather of water. Out of the brightness before him, coals of fire flamed forth. The Lord thousands from heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice. And he sent out arrows and scattered them, lightning and routed them. Then the channels of the seas were seen, the foundation of the world were laid bare. At the rebuke of the Lord, at the best of the breath of his nostril, he sent from on high, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the days of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into the broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands he rewarded me. For I have kept the way of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his rules were before me, and from his statutes I did not turn aside. I was blameless before him, and I kept myself from guilt. And the Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sights. With the merciful you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man you showed yourself blameless. With the purified you and dear purely. And with the crooked you make yourself seem tortoise. You save a humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. For you are my lamp, O Lord, and my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by God I can heap over a wall. This God, this way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our Lord? God is my strong refuge, and he has made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of the deer, and set me secure on the heights. I train my hands for war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your gentleness made me great. You gave a wide place for my step under me, and my feet did not slip. I pursued my enemy and destroyed them, and did not turn back until they were consumed. I consumed them. I thrust them through, so that they did not rise. They fell under my feet. For you equipped me with strength for the battle. You made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, those who hated me, and I destroyed them. They looked, but there was none to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as the dust of the earth. I crushed them and stamped them down like the mire of the street. You delivered me from strife with my people. You kept me as the head of the nations. People whom I had not known saved me. Foreigner came crying to me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners lost the heart and came trembling out of the dear fortresses. The Lord lives. The blessed be my rock, and exalt be my God and rock of my salvation. The God who gave me vengeance and brought down people under me, who brought me out from my enemies. You exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from the man of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing praise to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and show steadfast love to his anointed, to David, and his offspring forever. So once again, this is the praise of the David at the end of his journey. Everything is over now. All the enemies are destroyed. The people who should be spared is spared, and everything else destroyed. It's exactly the same as the Revelation. The story, how it ends. This particular praise songs, it is actually related to Psalm chapter 18. So we're going to go to Psalm chapter 18. And as I mentioned, I actually commented about chapter 18, the Psalm chapter 18 in the past. It's exactly the same thing when you read this. So, who is the rock? God is the rock. And who is this? Is Jesus is the rock. He's the stones. And he's the ultimate stones, the cornerstone. Right? So this particular chapter 22 is almost exactly same as chapter 18 because that's what David wrote. So when you come to chapter 18 of Psalm, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvations, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cord of death encompassed me. The torrent of destruction assailed me. The cord of a Sheol entangles me. The snare of death confronted me. In my distress I call upon the Lord. To my God I cry for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached to his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundation also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went from his nostril, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens, and it came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on the cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made it darkness, his covering, his canopy around him, and thick cloud dark with waters out of the brightness before him, and hailstone and coals of fire broke through his cloud. So when you read this one, you will find it almost a identical story of the chapter 22. So at the end, who's going to win? Jesus will. And at the end, there will be praise, singing, and, praising Holy of Holy at the end for what he had done. Because he is our rock, and he is the refuge. Now, jumped on. I'm really hoping that I can finish this. I'm not sure if I can finish this all. Oh, let's quick. So, chapter 23. I want you to think of this. When you watch the movie, at the end, what do you see? After movie's over, what do you see? The credits, right? It goes up, right? How many of you actually sit through those credits? After do you really sit through it and really read and who did what when the credit goes up, or as soon as the movie's over, you either, if you're actually watching the movie from the Netflix or the Amazon or other places, you just click, you close it, right? Or if you're in a movie theater, when you finish watching the movie, and then at the end, as soon as the movie's over and while the credits going up, everybody leaves. No one really pays attention to credits, right? Are you, okay, but most of the time we don't. Why? There are questions. First of all, do you really care? No, most of us really don't care, right? We don't even know who's who. Who cares about who participated in music? Who did participate in hiring the actors and actresses? No one cares what they did. And no one knows what they did to make this movie. But the movie that we watch, in order for that movie to really just to show up on the theaters, right? With all these people's, working on their parts to making this product that we watched. Without those help, without those people, the movie would not come out the way it came out. Everyone participated in their work and productions of this movie, right? And I'm sure they're proud of what they actually produce at the end. But nobody really cares. What we really cares is the actors. Well, not even all the actors, just the main characters of the movie, right? No one really cares who. Imagine, let's say, there's a scenes of the action movie that, like the bad guys are like killing every people. The people, those like extra, the character who's dying on the street. No one cares who's dying and how they die. No one cares, right? No one really pay attention to those people. But without those people, movie would not come out as it came out. Now, at the end, when everything is over, what we did only counted to the people who actually made the movie. The reason that they actually put this credit at the end, even though no one cares, right? The people who made this movie really wanted to give a credits for all their work. Whether it's small or large, it doesn't really matter. They appreciate for what they had done to produce this production. Even though nobody cares. But the head of the productions cares of what they did. And they wanted to give a credits to the people who participate in this. At the end, when everything is over, while nobody cares what we did, God cares for what they did. God cares what you did. Nobody cares. God does. Whether it's a small, large, doesn't matter. God wants to give that credit to you and me and everyone who's participated in this. This chapter 23 is that. Think of it as, at the end of the movie, now the credits going up. When you read this, we don't know who these people are. There's no really story of these people, what they did. But let's just take a look at it. And I want you to think of it, put that in mind, all right? That credits at the end of the movie is what you need to have it in your mind, okay? Now, these are the last words of David, the oracle of David, the son of Jesse, the oracle of man who was raised on high, on the anointed of the God of Jacob, and sweet psalmist of Israel. The Spirit of the Lord speaks by me. The word is on my tongue. So he's speaking through the Holy Spirit. The God of Israel has spoken. The Rock of Israel has said to me, when one rules justly over man, ruling in the fears of God, he drones on them like the morning light, like the sun shining forth on a cloudless morning, like rains that makes grass to sprout from the earth. Does not my house stand so with God? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant, or ordered in all things and secure. For will he not cause to prosper all my help and my desire? But worthless men are all like thorns that are thrown away, for they cannot be taken with the hand. But the man who touches them arms himself with the irons and the shaft of spears, and they are utterly consumed with fire. These are the names of the mighty men whom David had: Josheb Basshebeth, Tachemonite. He was the chief of the three. He wielded his spears against the 800 whom he killed at one time. The next to him among the three mighty men was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, son of Ehoi. He was with David when they defiled the Philistine who were gathered there for battle, and the man of Israel withdrew. He rose and struck down the Philistine until his hands was weary, and his hands clung to the sword. And the Lord brought about a great victory that day. The man who returned after him only a strip of slain. The next to him was Shammah, the son of Agi, the Hararite. The Philistine gathered together at Lehi, where there was a plot of ground full of lentils, and the men fled from Philistine. But he took his stand in the midst of the plot and defended it, and struck down the Philistine, and the Lord worked a great victory. And 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came about the harvest time to David at the cave of Adullam, when a band of a Philistine was encamped in a valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistine was then at Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of Philistine and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and carried and brought it to David. But he would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, "Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" Therefore he would not drink it. These things the 3 mighty men did. Now Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, the chief of the 30, and he wielded his spears against 300 men and killed them, and won a name besides 3. He was the most renowned of the 30 and became their commander, but he did not attain to the 3. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was the valiant man of Kabizeel, a doer of great deeds. He struck down 2 Ariels of Moab. He also went down to struck down a lion in a pit on a day when snow had fallen. And he struck down the Egyptians, a handsome man. The Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but Benaiah went down to him with the staff and snatched the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and won the name besides the 3 mighty men. He was renowned among the 30, but he did not attain to the 3. And David set him over his bodyguard. Asahel, the brother of Joab, was one of the 30. Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem. Shammah, the Harod. Elika, the Harod. Heliz, Palatai. Ira, the son of Ikash of Tekoa. Abiezer, the Anathoth, Mebani, and Hushathite. Zalmon, Ahohite, Meharai of Netophah, Heleb, the son of Bana, Netophah, Ittai, the son of Ribai of Gibeah of the people of Benjamin, Benaiah of Pirathon, Hidai of the brooks of Gash, Abiabon, the Hathite, Azmaveth of Bahurim, Eliabah and Shalbonai, the son of Jashen, Jonathan, Shammah, the Hararite, Ahiam, the son of the Sharar, the Hararite, Apilet, the son of the Ashabai, and Makkah, Elim, the son of Ahitophel, the Gilonite, Hezro, the Kalmar, the Par, the Arbites, Egal the son of Nathan of Jobah, Bani the Gadites, Zelek the Ammonites, Neharide, Beroth the armor-bearer of Joab the son of Jeruiah, Ira the Etherite, Gareb the Etherite, Uriah the Hittites, 37 in all. So, I could hardly even pronounce your name, but who cares about these people? Do you know about these people and what they did? Does anyone care? Did you actually hear them, in your Sunday sermons? Have you ever heard of them? You know what? Nobody cares. Seriously, nobody cares. Nobody even knows their name is in here. So, why did actually, the God actually wrote their names and what they did, while nobody cares about their name? This is like it's like reading the credits, names. That's literally the same. Nobody cares. But you know what? Whether it's large or small, doesn't really matter. David wanted to give a credit for what they did. When you look at their story, there's some story of what they did, how brave they were, how much they actually give their life for King David. Some said, I just want to drink some water from my own town. And this guy, the three guys, giving their life to break through the Philistines to get the water for David, risking their life for David. When they brought the water, and David could not drink that water because they gave their life for this water. He just poured out on the Lord. He said, I can't drink this. This is your blood. This is what you have done to draw this water for me. Every little stuff is recorded in here. And at the end of this chapter 23, there's no mention of what they did. We just see their name. And that name is not even familiar to us at all. So once again, who cares about them? God does. God remembers your name for what you did. Even though nobody knows and nobody cares about what you did, but God remembers every little stuff that you have done to Him. He will never forget. And at the end, God will call our name. Well done, my servant. I remember what you have done. Although nobody cares, nobody knows what I've done, God cares about your work. The little stuff that you have done to the Lord, how you give your life for the Lord, world will forget your name. No one remember what you did, but God will. Right, hopefully we can just finish this up. Again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and He incited David against them, saying, Go number Israel and Judah. So the king said to Joab, the commander of army, who was with him, Go through all the tribe of Israel, and Dan to Beersheba, the number of people, that I may know the number of people. But Joab said to the king, May the Lord your God add to the people 100 times as many as they are, while the eyes of my Lord the king still see it. But why does my Lord the king delights in these things? But the king's word prevailed against Joab and the commander of army. So Joab and the commanders of army went out from the presence of the king and numbered the people of Israel. They crossed the Jordan and began from Aror, and from the city that is in the middle of the valley towards the Gad and on to Jazer. Then they came to Gilead and the Kadesh in the land of Hittites, and they came to Dan, and from Dan they went around to Sidon, and came to fortress of Tyre, and to all the cities of the Hivites and Canaanites, and they went out to the Negev of Judah at Beersheba. So when they had gone through all the land, they came to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days. And Joab gave the sum of the numbering of the people to the king Israel. There were 800,000 valiant men who drew the sword, and the man of Judah was of 500,000. But David heart struck them after he had numbered the people. And David said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. But now, O Lord, please to take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. And when David arose in the morning, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Gad, David's seer, and saying, Go and say to David, Thus says to the Lord, 3 things I offer you, choose one of them, that I may do it to you. So Gad came to David and told him, and said to him, Shall 3 years of famine come to you in your land, or will you flee 3 months before you foe while they pursue you? Or shall there be 3 days pestilence in your land? Now consider, decide what answer I shall return to him who sent me. Then David said to Gad, I am a great distress, let us fall into shall there be 3 days and decide what answer I shall return to him who sent me. David said to Gad, I am in great distress, let us fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but let him not fall into the hand of man. So the Lord sent the pestilence on Israel from the morning until the appointed time, and there died of the people from Dan to Beersheba 70,000 men. And when the angel stretched out his hand towards Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord relented from the calamity and said to the angel who was working destruction among the people, It is enough. Now stay your hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. Then David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who was striking the people, and said, Behold, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Please, let your hands be against me and against my father's house. And Gad came to David and said to him, Go up and raise an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up to Gad's word as the Lord had commanded. And when Araunah looked down, he saw the kings and his servant coming on towards him. And Araunah went out and paid homage to the kings with his face to the ground. And Araunah said, Why has my lord the king come to his servant? David said, To buy the threshing floor from you, in order to build an altar to the Lord, at the plague may be averted from the people. Then Araunah said to David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Here are the oxen for the burnt offering, and the threshing sledge, and the yokes of the oxen for the wood. All this, O king, Araunah gives to the king. And Araunah said to the king, May the Lord your God accept you. But the king said to Araunah, No, but I will buy it from you for a price. I will not offer burnt offering to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen of 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offering and peace offering. So the Lord responded to the plea of the land, and plague was averted from Israel. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of time to go over this, but there's a lot to talk about this one. But let me see if I can actually just do this. So when you look at the verse 1, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. So God anger rose against Israel. Not to David, to Israel. And he incited David against them, saying, Go number Israel and Judah. So ultimately, God was not happy with what the Israelites were doing. So he actually kind of like used David to really count the number of people. But when you think about it, what's wrong with the counting numbers? What's wrong with the counting numbers? Nothing wrong with the counting numbers, right? They counted number of people in the past before. When Israelite came out of Egypt, they counted the number of Israelites. Right before they enter into the Canaan, they counted the number of people. So there was several censuses in the past. So what's wrong with this census? Counting a number of Israelites. What's the big deal? Right? In order for us to really understand this, let's just go to Exodus chapter 30 for a second. Exodus chapter 30. We're going to read from verse 11 and on. The Lord said to Moses, "When you take the census of the people of Israel, then each shall give a ransom for his life to the Lord when you number them, that there be no plague among them when you number them. Each one who is numbered in the census shall give this half a shekel according to the shekel of the sanctuary. The shekel is 20 gerah. The half a shekel as an offering to the Lord. Everyone who is numbered in the census from the 20 years old and upward shall give the Lord's offering. The rich shall not give more. The poor shall not give less than the half shekel when you give the Lord's offering to make atonement for your lives. You shall not take the atonement money from the people of Israel and shall give it for the service of the tent of meeting, that it may bring the people of Israel to remembrance before the Lord, so as to make atonement for your lives." This was the law. When you count the number of people, you need to give the shekel, the half shekel. If you don't, this is like showing you're substituting. By paying this price, you're accounted for. If you don't do it, there will be a plague. And it's only few of you who listened through the Exodus story of Exodus. And I showed you many times. And let me see if I can actually... Remember, I showed you this this money. Let me see if I can actually show. That's too far. It's too close. What is this? This is shekel. But it's a shekel. But this shekel is a half. As I told you before, in any country, in any country's money, there's no such thing as a half. Right? There's no such thing as a half. Israel is the only country that has this half shekel. Right? And I explained this many times in the past. Why is it half shekel? Why not one? We don't call half dollar. We don't call half 5, half 10. We don't call that. We just either $5 or 50 cents. There's no such a thing as a half shekel, half of something. Right? This is the only country that still keeps this money half shekel. Like there's no such thing. Okay? What does this mean? And I told you, half, it's like split in half. Split in half. Why? Because Jesus has to split himself on the cross. Half. Jesus has to give a half. So when Jesus Christ died, what happened of that, to the veil? Veil torn from the top to bottom. Right? Torn was top to bottom. Why? Because Jesus had to split his body to give himself for us as a ransom. As you read this one, in Exodus chapter 30, right? It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, you have to give equal atonement. Right? So let's just read again. 13. Each one who is numbered in the census shall give this half a shekel, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. Half shekel as an offering to the Lord. Half, split. As I mentioned, when Israelites were in the wilderness, how did the water come out? Splitting the rock. The rock has to be splitted to produce the living water. That was a representation of Jesus splitting his body to produce the living water. Right? Same story. You have to give the atonement money for your life. That was the Jesus. Okay? But obviously, when David was running the census, sounds like they did not actually give this shekels, the half a shekel, for their atonement. So plague came upon them. Now, at the end, how did he solve this problem? He went to where? He had to build the altar, right? Where did he go? When you go back to the 2 Samuel, verse 18, the God came to that Dave and said to him, "Go up, raise an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." So David went up at Gad's word, as the Lord had commanded. And when Araunah looked down, he saw the king and his servant coming towards him. And Araunah went out and paid homage to the king with his face to the ground. So he bought the threshing floor of Araunah. He paid the price. And then that's where he built an altar. And when he actually gave the offerings to the Lord, the plague stopped. Now, question is this. What is this story? What is this story? Where is this place? This is what we're going to find out. Now, I want you to turn to 2 Chronicle. 2 Chronicle, chapter 1. We're going to take a look at a few things here. 2 Chronicle, chapter 1. We're going to read from verse 1. Solomon, Solomon, the son of David, established himself in his kingdom. And the Lord his God was with him and made him exceedingly great. Solomon spoke to all Israel, to the commander of thousands and hundreds, to the judge, and to all the leaders in Israel, and heads of father's house. And Solomon and all the assembly with him went to the high place that was at Gibeon, for the tent of meeting of God, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, had made in the wilderness was there. Where was this tabernacle was in? Gibeon. We talked about Gibeonites, right? Remember, Gibeonites were supposed to be all wiped out, but they came to Joshua, right? And they spared their life, right? That's where the tent of the Lord was placed. Not elsewhere. It was in the Gibeonites. Okay? Now, verse 13. So Solomon came from the high place at Gibeon, from therefore the tent of meeting, to Jerusalem, and he reigned over Israel. So, the Solomon came from where? It is missing in here, but came from Gibeon. So the tent of the Lord was at the Gibeonites. And now he's actually bringing that tent, and let's find out where that tent is coming. It's going. So turn to chapter 3. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to David his father, at the place that David had appointed on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Now, let's just put this all together. Moriah, the mountain of Moriah, threshing floor of Araunah, or the Ornan, which is the same place, is where the temple of Solomon was built. It's the same place. But let's just link to this. When God told Abraham, I want you to give your one and only son Isaac to me, right? He had to travel 3 days to get to the Mount Moriah to offer Isaac to the Lord. Remember? 3 days. Now, go back to the 2 Samuel. God gave the options. 3 options. What was the option again? Let's take a look. Again, coming back to 2 Samuel chapter 24. Verse 13. So Gad came to David and told him, said to him, shall 3 years of famine come to you in the land, in your land, or will you flee 3 months before your foes while they pursue you, or shall there be 3 days of pestilence in your land? Now consider and decide what answer I shall return to him who sent me. So what was David's choice? 3 days of pestilence. Once again, I'm going to just map this story of Abraham. He had to travel 3 days to go to Moriah to offer Isaac. David, there was pestilence. The plague came upon the land of Israel. He chose 3 days of pestilence. And then, at the end, he bought the land, the threshing floor from Araunah or Ornan, and then when he gave the burnt offering and peace offering to the Lord, the pestilence, the plague stopped. And that's where the temple of Solomon was built upon. Same story as the Abraham. Same story as this story of the threshing floor of Ornan. Exactly the same story. After the sacrifice of the animal, the plague stopped. They should have been destroyed, but God did not destroy it, because God offered him to come back so that God can forgive them by giving the sacrifice of a lamb. Exact same story. Story of Abraham and Isaac. Story of threshing floor of Araunah. Same story. Story of Jesus Christ. Exactly the same. It's the same story. Salvation. And the animal has to die. In the story of Abraham, God told Abraham to offer Isaac. But when he was about to kill Isaac, God said, Abraham, Abraham. He called Abraham's name. And then God prepared what? He prepared the lamb. He prepared the ram. And Abraham had to give the ram in substitute his son's Isaac. Right? With this plague, all the plague came upon the land of Israel. They should have been all killed. But because David gave the offering to the Lord, and then that literally spared the life of Israelites. So this is the same story. So as you can see here,